I believe that if women dress provocatively, men are going to objectify them, and that's natural. What do you think?
Okay, I'd like to know why you think that's natural, and why do you think it's natural for particularly men and not just women?
So even though I spoke about men and women, I don't necessarily believe that. I think if men dress provocatively as well, then women are going to objectify them as well. So it's not an exclusive gender thing.
So why is the question an exclusive gender thing? Isn't it a thing of why is it human nature to objectify an individual who dresses provocatively? Isn't that the real question?
Well, it's a perfectly legitimate question. I have no objection to that. It's just...
Yeah, no, I don't have an objection to that. I find that for me as a woman who is constantly objectified, it actually doesn't matter what you wear. Like, I have learned that, and this is something that a lot of men don't get to learn because it's not ingrained into their society. They're allowed to wear what they want. They're allowed to speak how they want because men are grown up being taught boys will be boys. Boys can take up as much space as they want. If you like a girl, you can pull on her pigtails, and all of those things are inherent nature which allow for men to have toxic masculinity, but it's also a thing of toxic femininity. Women are taught to take up not enough space, and women are taught to be quiet and to cover their bits, not spread their legs, things like that, shave their legs, shave their armpit hair, keep their hair long, don't cut it short, don't dye it. So women and men are taught to do particular things for other genders when actually it's all about realizing what gender or what do you you need to understand that femininity and masculinity, it's just a construct, and it's all about gender gender isn't a thing, sex is a thing. So there's biological sex and biological makeup, and there's testosterone and estrogen. Both genders have testosterone and estrogen. There's intersex, which has both. There's people that identify as non-binary. There are people that identify as woman and man. I currently I identify as a woman because I'm really in touch with my femininity, but I'm also really in touch with my masculinity. So I'm wearing a flowy skirt today because I feel like it, but some days I'll wear trackies because I feel like it. And I find that, just because I dress if I wear a top that shows my nipples doesn't mean that a man has to look at it. He has nipples, and if he wants to look at it, he can. And so I think that sentence, the way that you framed your question isn't correct. It's what you want to know is, why is this an objective, why is it an innate nature for human beings to sexualize other human beings? And that's because we are built on a desire of survival, and we're built on pleasuring ourselves. At the end of the day, people only care about themselves. And that's the fucked up part of society. And when you can learn to care about yourself, you can begin to care about others. And so men that don't objectify women for whatever they wear are men that have learnt to care about themselves and have defied societal expectations.
Okay, heaps for me to dissect there, but thank you for that. I think that gives me a very clear understanding of where you're coming from. So can I ask, are you religious, or do you come from an evolution sort of perspective?
I come from both. So my family is primarily Jewish and atheist, and so I don't follow the Jewish religion, but I found that the Jewish religion helped me through recovering from my 9-year-old cousin's death, which was terrible, but something that the only way that I got through it was the Jewish religion and the way that they approached death. And I also got through it knowing about evolution and life, and I find that to be religious, it's not about having a religion, it's about whether you believe in something, and everyone does. So yeah, I am religious.
Okay, so you probably don't actually see a conflict between the two of them then?
There's not.
Okay, that's absolutely fine. So I'm agnostic. I don't actually know whether there's a God. I'm not sure, but
You don't have to.
That's cool. And I do come from the evolution perspective, and I believe in the science of evolutionary psychology and evolutionary biology. So when it comes to the question of objectification, so why when we see nipples, if you see some AFL athlete's beautiful body, are women going to be oh wow, a bit hot under the collar, and men the same when they see a girl's tits, they're going to be oh gosh, now I'm thinking about sex. I think it's because of ancient instincts that were put in us from evolution, designed to make us procreate. Almost our biology tricks us into being sexual because the genes inside of us want to reproduce and pass on to the next generation. And so even though you get what would be like a toxic kind of sexuality, if you're getting to the point where you're exploiting Jeffrey Epstein, horrible stuff, and there's probably some female examples as well, right? But there at the very core of it, sexuality isn't problematic. Like it's natural, it's beautiful, and there's a very healthy sexuality that can go. And so when I say the sentence, which obviously is not all encompassing, I've just chosen that little part there, but I'm glad we talked about that. Then I say that if women dress provocatively, what I mean, like accentuating the sexual body parts, butt, waist, boobs, and so forth, it's going to provoke a sexual response in men, and that's natural. I'm not saying be a creep about it, I'm not saying threaten her or be rude or anything provoke danger, but the actual sexual response that it provokes itself is natural, and we can't shame men for having a sexual response. What do you think?
Yeah, well, it's not about the women, not even the feminazis. We're not shaming, like, and I'm not a feminazi, I'm a feminist.
You almost identified.
But, you know, and like that's the thing, because of feminazis and extremist feminism, extremist religion, whatever, it puts a bad name on whatever. Extremist vegans, there's a bad name on them for
an extremist
anything
anything is bad, basically.
Exactly,
right?
And there's like, you know, and that comes with everything. And so that's the thing, women focus on the extremist men because there's a fucking lot of them, and that's not about their sexuality, it's about society, because society has built this like ingrained culture where you can just where you can just like completely, you know, men can say whatever the fuck they want. Like men, people have said to me, like men have said to me, oh, like, nice legs, I want to lick your pussy lips or something on the street in the middle of the day. And that's not a joke. Like,
I mean, that's indefensible.
Thing.
Have you?
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh because it is
No,
absolutely
you're
horrible.
welcome
It's
to
like
laugh.
it's like a
It's
shock
hilarious.
kind of laugh. Did you ever did any men overhear that and like stand up?
No.
No?
Men don't do that.
Really?
I was in a 3-year abusive relationship, sexually, emotionally, and physically. It ended a month ago, and all of his friends are aware of it and will no longer speak to me because I haven't taken it to court yet, and told me not to tell anyone because it was his side of the story and not my side.
That would seem also indefensible. What?
And it's inexperience. That's the thing. Men that act this way, it's not because they're bad people. It's because they're inexperienced and they haven't been educated properly. Because the world doesn't educate men or women properly. I wasn't educated enough to be in a relationship and to be able to say no to the things that were happening to me. And I will never blame the person that he is now. I blame the person that he was. And I blame there's no point in holding a grudge against men. Yeah, women say fuck all men, but that's because if you look at the statistics, 1 in 4 women are assaulted in their life. And it hasn't happened to me to just one guy. It's happened verbally on the street every single time I go out. My girlfriends can't go out clubbing alone, but my guy friends can. They can do whatever the fuck they want. We can't even get in an Uber without freaking out. Most women sit in the back of the Uber because a lot of men in society haven't been educated to control their sexual desires. Because women aren't an object to be used, and neither are men. And if you're fucking horny or you want to have sex and there's no one there, go home and have a fucking wank. Like, get over it.
It's always an option available to you.
Yeah, it's available to everyone. And it's just like, I think that the question really should be, why is society not educating both genders on how to be respectful and take up the space that they need without, like, you know, hurting anyone else?
It's interesting. At the start of this conversation, I thought, all right, I think that probably the best we can hope for here is a respectful disagreement. But I'm actually more optimistic. I actually think there's a good chance that we're going to end up seeing eye to eye on something.
Yeah.
So if I'll just rephrase it in my own words,
Yeah,
because
go
I
for
think
it.
there's a potential you're actually going to agree with me here, is we hear about toxic masculinity. No doubt there are men acting in a toxic way. We hear less about toxic femininity, but it does exist, and there are women who are like liars, compulsive cheaters, gold diggers, something like that. Like that absolutely exists. And on my channel and in my worldview, I always feel like the sane, rational, kind men have more in common with the sane, rational, kind women than they do with the irrational, extremist men and so forth. And that actually what's really required in society is for the nice people to kind of unionize against all of the toxic people, and that we're probably better to start losing the labels that specifically denote a specific gender. Like, we need to stop saying, oh, it's all toxic men or toxic women. It's actually, no, let's just focus on the toxic people. And it might manifest in different ways for each gender, but it's actually the toxicity, not the gender, that's the the linking part. What do you think of that?
Well, that's what the word toxic masculinity and toxic femininity are for. Because masculinity, it's not about your gender. I'm a masculine woman and I'm also a feminine woman, you know, and that's the thing. That's why those terms, for men, a man to be able to be called out, like I can call out my boyfriend and say, you're being toxic and you are displaying behaviors of toxic masculinity, and he'll shut the fuck up and apologize. And that's called being aware and being accountable of your actions, which men aren't taught to do, and women aren't taught to do it either. Like, women can guilt trip and emotionally manipulate. I know I've done it in my life. I know that a lot of women who have done it, and if you call them out and you say you're behaving toxically, they might get angry, but eventually they'll think about it.
Yeah, it's like providing negative reinforcement for negative behaviors, positive reinforcement for positive behaviors.
Yeah, and that's how human nature should be.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's how parenting should be, and ideally the school system as well.
Don't get me started on the school system.
Well, how do you feel right now? Because I feel quite good.
I'm happy. I think we've had a good discussion, and I'm glad that I'm pretty sure we're on the same page. Obviously, I'm a little bit stronger on the men suck part, but that's, you know...
But it reflects your experience.
Exactly.
And I will say, it's easy to get caught in your bubble, and I don't just mean the social media bubble, and that can happen as well. But I will say confidently, none of my male friends indulge in the kind of behaviors that you're talking about. But I've been very selective over the years of getting rid of toxic people from my life.
Yeah.
And that's a process. You know, I'm older now, like in my early 20s, I couldn't necessarily say that with all confidence, but at this stage, like, okay, at some point you need to identify the good people you want to keep in your life and remove the others. And I say that I see a lot of examples of like positive masculinity in my personal life, but it's very easy for me to forget that there's a world outside of my bubble, my circle of friends, the people I associate with, and who there are men, that you're exposed to that are obviously, acting in a different way. And potentially, if I may be so bold, it might also be possible that because of your experiences, you've been encountering a lot of men of the negative type, and it might be easy to forget that there are actually a lot of really positive men out there as well. And I think that we could all do better to expand outside of our personal bubbles and consider perspectives from alternate things. And I think that this conversation is extremely valuable because hearing the intensity and the passion and obviously the pain, if I may be so bold, that you've experienced like that, it's all going to feed into my understanding of the world and make me more wise and less self-focused in just my own personal world. And that's got to be a positive thing.
Yeah, of course it is. I think that it's really important to surround yourself around positive people, but also reflect on the fact that positive people aren't necessarily always going to be fucking positive. Like, excuse my language.
No,
I swear.
I guess
all the time.
Authentic is probably a better word, like sincere.
Because like that's the thing. I have a lot of friends in my life that are going through some really terrible stuff, and they can't help me, and so they're doing their best to help themselves, and that's the friendship, And friendships aren't about surrounding yourself around positive people isn't just about like a happy person, and you just have to recognize the qualities in a person that you want to have.
Couldn't agree more. Can I just take a video? What do you think?
Frida agrees. She's a bit of a feminist. Frida Kahlo.
Well, that was wonderful. Are you happy for me to use that footage?
Yeah, you're welcome to.